that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Yag Kosha. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Robert E. Howard works, I guess. Today, I have the story The Elephant Tower, another Conan the Barbarian tale. It's only 3 chapters long. A lot of these stories aren't super long, so these feel a bit more like short stories than like a full-on novel. So I'm not going to go like super in depth. I mean, there's not really too much there to give you. This was way more Lovecraftian than I was expecting. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that Robert E. Howard and Lovecraft were friends. I don't know if that's true. I don't know how much Lovecraft had written by this point, but it feels like he might have read some Lovecraft, or they were just coincidentally very similar, which is also possible. I didn't do enough research about this story to know. I read it like you would read back in the 1930s if you got your hands on it. If you were reading, like, what would it be in? Would it still be in Weird Tales, or what would this be put in? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. Probably should have done some more research on that. But anyway, chapter 1 has some good world building. There's some stuff with Conan walking through this city because he's in a more well-developed location. And you got these like noble people, these like higher people. Not even like noble, they're just civilized. They're the average man, I guess, and they're kind of mocking him for how he looks and stuff. And this is again just fresh in my mind because I've been reading Malazan by Stephen Erickson, and in that you have kind of basically Conan persona in that series through a character named Karsa Orlong, who's very much the stand-in for Conan in that series. It was meant to be kind of a more nuanced approach to that very same idea. But you have here the example of, very clearly, of civilization versus barbarism. And, how barbarism, in a sense, is somehow more pure and honest and sincere than civilization. Because civilization brings in slavery and all this stuff, right? Now, we don't really deal with slavery in this particular story. Conan is here to steal, because he's a thief, which, I gotta be honest, for years I'd vaguely known what Conan was. It's this big buff guy with a sword. Being a thief was not on my list of things that he was gonna be. I thought he'd be like some hero, that was very simple. Simple isn't necessarily bad, but he's a thief of all things, and he's gonna go steal some treasure from this place called the Elephant Tower, which nobody goes up anymore for some reason. But there's these people, kind of making fun of him, and there's this comment in that opening section where it's like, yeah, I mean, these men felt in themselves power to be rude and arrogant and unkind toward this fellow man because they lived in civilization. So for they had this expectation that due to being in civilization, that they could treat a person such a way and face no repercussions. Because in the wild, in barbaric lands, right? Places that aren't civilized, you insult someone, you get your head bashed until you die. And there's a bit of honesty and a bit of simplicity in that. That kind of automatically demands respect, in a sense, and kindness, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think barbarism would just be like, oh, you made me angry, bonk, 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 dead, gone, whether or not you actually deserved it or not. But But again, that was the whole thing. I'm not going to get into Malazan here, as Malazan is an entirely different story to discuss. But Kars Orlong was meant to be a more balanced approach to that very idea. So I already kind of have my mindset on what he would be, because there's going to be a much more simplistic, black and white personification of that very idea. So, Conan, he may be rough around the edges, he may be a very simple fellow, but he's honest, he's truthful, and he doesn't like being made fun of. So it causes a fight in that opening section. But anyway, so then he goes on to go to this place. And chapter 2 is very much just a bunch of descriptions of locations, which are very well written. I think Robert E. Howard has some pretty good prose. Like, it's very easy to read, but it's also very rich in the dialogue and the action scenes, which I'm not a big action guy, especially in novels. You have to be a particular author to really get me invested in them. And I don't think Robert E. Howard necessarily broke that streak for me, but that's a personal thing. That's not like a objective standard of him. But he did do better than most, I'll say, because even though I was still kind of bored by the actiony sections, I could follow it and I could see a bit of it. Like, he fights a spider, he fights this dude, and he makes it up to the tower. But chapter 3 is where things take a turn for the better, absolutely automatically, because Conan comes upon this half human, half elephant man sitting on this throne or chair or something, and he's blind, he seems weak, he seems in pain. Conan feels this intense sorrow and empathy for this man. And this man has been doing the bidding of some god for the past 300 years. Good, bad, doesn't matter. He's been forced to do it. No matter, he doesn't have a choice in the matter. And I don't want to say anything more than that. Like, you really just have to read it. You just have to kind of read that section, because automatically, if I was getting a little bored by the action, that immediately drew me in. I was locked in for the remainder of that story. The moment that thing starts talking, it just is incredible. We also have little mentions in there of, like, Atlantis and stuff, and a civilization that came before Conan's civilization and the other civilizations within this time period, which is really interesting. And I do know that there's another character named, like, Noel or something, that has his own stories and stuff, and that takes place, like, in Atlantis, I think. So that was really interesting. But overall, I mean, again, it's very short. It take you less than like 2 hours to read, um, if you're just reading all the way through. But it was fun. It was interesting, and it made me vastly more interested in the Conan universe than the previous story we talked about. Which, to be fair, I don't think was the first story ever written, but it was. There's debates among chronology, but from what I've seen and what I could articulate, it seems like the last story should have been the first, chronologically speaking. That being said, it was fine. This actually has me much more interested to get invested in the universe. I don't know if any of the rest of them are going to be like this, but I very much vibe with this kind of like cosmic being idea. I mean, that's a very Lovecraft thing too, but I loved it here. It was interesting, and it made me curious as to what else this universe may offer. So, do I recommend it? Yeah. I mean, if you can find this for free, I mean, it should be pretty easy online. Check out this story. I mean, hell, even listen to an audiobook on YouTube. Just hear this story. It might make you interested in reading more Conan. I don't think I would recommend the last one to anyone to get them into Conan, but this one, absolutely I would. I'm trying to think, do I have any like specific spoilers? Um, Not really. I kind of mentioned everything that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, the ancient god being was Yog Kosha. So, and that also in itself, Yog Kosha, Yog is a Thoth. Like, there's similarities there. Is it necessarily connected? Not necessarily. Um, I could see somebody, because here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you wanted to be like you know, somebody who tries to fit as much as you can, here's the thing. Obviously, two very different types of stories, right? But I believe, the setting of Conan is meant to be Earth, just in the ancient past, right? And there's an even more ancient past that they alluded to here. But if this is on Earth, and every story in Lovecraft takes place on Earth. You could make the argument that they're connected. How well will that fit? Probably not well. I don't know. I don't know how that would all work, but the name just got me thinking about that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it a lot. Definitely has me excited to read more of these stories by Robert D. Howard, and I'm really excited because, these I don't want these to get lost to time, and if I can help more people get into these series, I think that'd be great. Um, some of these people that we talk about as we go through it, I mean, this is going to be, as I delve into more of these stories, whether it be space opera, sci fi, sword and sorcery, fantasy, the farther back I go, the further problems come from the outside when you deal with like authors and beliefs and stuff. You're going to get times where you get somebody who may be a little racist or maybe a little this, maybe a little that. Like H.P. Lovecraft, for example. He wasn't racist. I don't think from what I understand of him, he didn't hate people of color. He was genuinely xenophobic, which specifically he was afraid of them because he didn't understand them because they were different, which is not necessarily better, but at the same time, it's not. From what I've read of Lovecraft, it didn't come out of a place of hatred necessarily. But I could be wrong about that. I haven't read everything that Lovecraft's ever said. Um, Robert E. Howard also has some stuff that I haven't dwelled too much into, but I'm just being cautious here because I know this is the 1930s. But regardless of when these stories come out and what the authors may or may not think, you can differentiate the author from the art. And this was a really fun story, and it makes me really excited to go through more of these Conan stories and the Knoll stories and the Solomon Kane stories. It makes me really excited to read space opera, because they're all around the same time period of having, like Lee Brackett's or Edgar Rice Burroughs, and I want to preserve that if I can on my YouTube channel. No one's gonna care. I only got like 450 subs, but I want to spread that love. And before, I was like, do I really want to do this when I finished the last one because it was just okay. But this has given me reinvigoration. It's gotten me excited to read more Conan, and I hope you will stick with me as I go through all of the Conan catalog available to us. Um, Eventually, all of it. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe tell me what you thought of the story if you've read it, what you think of Robert E. Howard, what you think of the Conan stories in general without spoiling them, because I don't really know anything about them. So any of those sort of discussions I really love in the comment section below. But just get me more hyped for these, because I'm really excited now. And yeah, that'll be it for now. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.